Okay, and we can get started. So thanks everyone for joining. My name is Greg Hodgkinson. I'm the CTO at Prolifics. And as the title of the webinar says, we didn't start the fire, but we know how to leverage it for better healthcare. I'll be sharing with you today the innovation journey we've been on around HL7s FHIR specification, what the concerns are we focused on, what we've learned along the way. My hope is that this webinar will spark some new ideas for you, or hopefully speak directly to concerns that you may be working through on your own journey with FHIR. And I'd very much like this to be the start of a dialogue, more of which I will talk about later. So we're going to start with some blue sky thinking. Everyone would love to have, I think, a 100% dedicated and personalized medical care. The perfect doctor that knows everything. They have all the knowledge that a doctor gains through all the training that they go through of conditions, the symptoms, the treatments. They have access to all the latest research and findings. They have the details of every single doctor visit you've had or inpatient visit, every procedure you've undergone. They know about every medicine you've taken, along with the background of all your allergies. They're even aware of your weekly exercise routine, and that allows them to measure things like your heart rates and all of the things that our smart devices and wearables allow us to track nowadays. And then even as far as they're knowing the details of your healthcare financial setup. So daily balances, your coverage, all of that information is available to this perfect doctor. So in reality, it won't be a single doctor, one single organization, or even one system that can do all this. But what if all the doctors, organizations, and systems that you deal with seemed more joined up? So seem more personalized and are infinitely more knowledgeable about you and your context. And if you think the doctor cutout on this slide seems strangely familiar to you, it's because I want to pose the question, what if the perfect healthcare system of tomorrow was like having your own personal doogie looking after you? So again, in reality, doogie will actually be many healthcare professionals, many organizations, and many systems, but they're all joined up and focused on your needs to give you healthier, happier lives. So let's consider a few characteristics of what this perfect doogie dedicated to you would have, that perfect healthcare system of tomorrow. Firstly, it would allow you to take better control of your own health by providing you with the information you need and the insights you need when you need it in a form that is accessible, so that you can take more responsibility for your own personal health. Secondly, although the system, again, would be many doctors, many organizations, many systems, you would experience a continuum of care. For example, smooth handover of treatments between practitioners and even hospitals. So there's no speed bumps or roadblocks, and all of this is informed by the full data picture we spoke about in the previous slide. Thirdly, it would reduce healthcare costs because it would enable you to make smarter healthcare choices for treatments or medications by giving you transparency of what those costs will be at the point when you're still able to make decisions for those choices. Fourthly, the system would use all of the data at its disposal to ensure the resources in the healthcare ecosystem were used appropriately. So doing this through things like reducing incorrect diagnosis, or maybe even suggesting better treatment options, which means there's less wastage and the resources are being used more effectively to treat conditions, which avoids the need for further commitment of resources. And then lastly, it would also improve health by improving diagnosis. So what if all the data could be used to help with accurate predictions of conditions that help to improve your health? We firmly believe that data is the key to this perfect healthcare system. And importantly, this is also the only way we're going to tackle the issues around healthcare costs. So we all know about the scale of that problem. And I've called out a few items there. So healthcare in the US is expensive, with the highest cost per person anywhere in the world. According to Kaiser, premiums are expensive. So averaging for a family healthcare insurance premiums, just over $19,000 a year. And they are, as an example, rose 5% last year. So not only are they expensive, but they're getting more expensive. And then according to Fidelity, even a healthy couple is going to spend a significant sum on healthcare in their retirement, around $285,000 at current calculations. So data is key to bringing these spiraling costs under control. At Prolifics, we've been looking at this from 4 different points of view. So firstly, how data is shared. Secondly, how data is managed. Thirdly, data science and how data is automatically mined for insights, making use of the promise of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And then fourthly, how data is integrated. So HL7's FHIR specification has really been setting this entire space alight. And I'm pretty sure if you're on this session today, FHIR is familiar to you. So instead of telling you what FHIR is about, I'm just going to focus on 4 things that I believe it achieves. So firstly, before we even get to the technology, it gives us a common language across the healthcare ecosystem. So providing us with this common terminology for the full range of healthcare concerns, whether it's clinical findings, patient problems, allergies, patient history, physician orders, care planning, the full spectrum. As an example, lab results, vital signs, and social history in the FHIR terminology are all considered observations. And this common language alone provides some benefit in reducing complexity in sharing and understanding data. So somewhat more fundamentally, what FHIR does is it standardizes the APIs. So the interfaces through which this healthcare data is shared. And it does this across the entire healthcare ecosystem, from APIs for base concepts such as patients and practitioner care to clinical data, diagnostics, even the financial aspects of healthcare such as claims and coverage. There are 145 individual APIs defined in the current release of the spec. Not only does it standardize how we share the data, but it also standardizes what this data looks like. So what does a patient record look like? What does a procedure look like? Provides a clear standard for all of this data across the board. And the other thing that it does is it tells us how all this data fits together, that overall domain. And as we'll discuss later, this is hugely beneficial. So if FHIR is so great, how does it address our data concerns and what concerns does it leave for you to solve for yourself? So I introduced 4 points of view in terms of how data can help deliver the perfect healthcare system. So what does FHIR give us that addresses each of those points of view? And more importantly, how is this of value? I'm going to start off with the first, which is sharing data. So how does sharing data generate value? And on the left, I've listed 3 examples that I'll quickly review. So firstly, as an example, we have patient empowerment. We all know that sharing data with patients lets them take more control of their own health. That lets patients themselves make better decisions on matters that affect their health, like diet and exercise. But it also lets them make better decisions on their healthcare, so things like treatment and medication. So the value here is better patient health at a lower cost. Secondly, as we all know, the entire industry is moving towards a value-based reimbursement model, which relies heavily on data sharing between payers and providers. The value is better coordination of care, prevention, and better management of conditions, while at the same time capping costs. And the third example focuses on clinical researchers who work on improving treatments. So giving them access to shared data from EHR systems, as well as other sources such as patient-originated data, can be hugely valuable to their research. And the value there is more fit for purpose and more effective treatments. So moving to the right of the slide, what does FHIR give us to help share that data? So obviously FHIR gives us the actual API standards for sharing data. There's 145 individual APIs that let us share across the entire spectrum of healthcare data. What makes FHIR different from previous healthcare data sharing mechanisms, such as EDI, is how well it suits implementation with RESTful web services. And this is great because REST is simple, lightweight, can be implemented with popular and open source service technologies, web service technologies, all of which make it easier and cheaper for you to implement data sharing. It's great to know the FHIR spec is componentized, so you can implement just the APIs you care about, so the ones that share the data required for your specific use cases, without the complexity and overhead of the monolithic standards of the past. Once you have an API implemented, it's easy to achieve interoperability. Plug in any API provider or system that conforms to the API specification, which brings about flexibility to your architecture. It's also interesting to note that FHIR is becoming foundational to other standards that increase the value of your data, such as Smart on FHIR, which defines how to integrate healthcare applications that utilize FHIR data into EHR systems. So if FHIR lets you do all of this, but it still leaves a number of concerns that you will need to take care of yourself, like how you expose these APIs while at the same time keeping the data secure. How do you socialize your APIs to ensure they're being used successfully? How do you develop and test your APIs? How do you operationalize and scale your APIs? And the team at Prolifics has been hard at work on the answers to those questions, as you will see as we look at the solution a little bit later. Let's next look at managing data. FHIR helps there. So I'll start by asking the question, where is all this data and therefore value? And the data that drives the healthcare system comes from a vast number of sources in many different formats with varying volumes and frequency, but all important to that perfect healthcare system of tomorrow. So starting with electronic health records that allow us to improve all aspects of patient care, safety, effectiveness, timeliness, efficiency, and equity. Then claims data that provides additional insight into the treatments and medication that have formed part of the patient's healthcare. We have vital records that inform public health goals and policy, data around prescriptions, imaging, and lab work, all part of the patient's healthcare. All of the data that comes out of research in healthcare to the goals of improving patient health. Surveys that gather data both to drive research as well as general healthcare policy making. And the volumes of new and immediate healthcare data that can be generated by wearables and devices that provide a window of insight into your health. So if we look to the right of the slide and how FHIR helps with the management of all this data, well, FHIR provides us with that standard common target data format for transforming all of this data into a form where it can be more generally and easily usable. So think of FHIR becoming the single common format that then provides data integrity, accuracy, consistency, clarifying ambiguous meanings, and then minimizing redundant data, as well as making it easier to consistently apply the business rules. And having this data standard will make it simpler to govern your data with a data catalog that can track things like who owns it, where did it come from, is that source trustworthy, who's allowed to use it, and who has used it for what purposes. Again, FHIR leaves some homework for you to do. So it doesn't help you understand how to ingest the data, how to transform it, how to govern it, and also how do you take care of concerns such as data privacy, all of which are concerns we've been working on tackling with our solution. Let's look at data science, so specifically artificial intelligence and machine learning. And there's extensive value that is hidden in your healthcare data that can be revealed through AI and machine learning. I'll briefly mention three well-known examples. Firstly, almost the holy grail application of AI machine learning in healthcare is the ability to use the data you have for a patient to predict a specific condition. And many of the early challenges with AI machine learning being worked through are related to this set of use cases. But progress is being made. There are many great use case studies out there that tell us about practitioners that are being successfully guided or assisted by AI machine learning models. So the value here is obviously earlier and better diagnosis of conditions at a population-wide scale. The second example is training AI machine learning models to be able to recommend the most effective healthcare procedures or medications that can be used to treat a patient. The value there is achieving improved healthcare outcomes. And thirdly, is a similar use case where AI machine learning models can be trained to help spot where healthcare resources are being misused, either just used inefficiently or where actual fraud's occurring. And the value there is to reduce the financial burden on the healthcare system. So those are just a few powerful examples of how AI machine learning can change healthcare for the better. But again, how does FHIR help us? So moving to the right, as we saw earlier, FHIR not only provides standards for the APIs and data, but it also tells you how all this data fits together in a consistent manner. Now that is fantastic for machine learning. AI machine learning models are very much the same as humans. If you've trained it on bad data, you'll get bad outcomes. But if you don't have enough data, then its insights will also be limited. And what makes for good ML models? Well, lots of good quality data. And the data needs to have good coverage, so it needs to give you a representation of the entire data space you need to cover. Secondly, you need lots of it. And machine learning isn't as effective with megabytes of data as it is with gigabytes or terabytes or beyond. The more data you have, the more reliable its predictions, and the data also needs to be well-formed, correctly labeled with consistent meaning. FHIR allows you to achieve all these things because it tells you how all your data fits together, which means you can now create sizable training data sets that are consistent with good quality, even though they may have been sourced from multiple data sources. So FHIR can be awesome for creating training data sets. But again, FHIR is not going to help you with the concerns of how to prepare those data sets, how to actually train your models, how to deploy those models, and then making the whole exercise repeatable so your models stay relevant by retraining them on fresh data. And those are all concerns our solution addresses. So lastly, I'm going to look at data integration, specifically the integrations that make up your value chain. And we'll consider 3 examples briefly. So firstly, we know there are many cases where real-time integration with systems are required in your value chain, be they legacy systems or packages or even new cloud-native capabilities that are being built. And the resulting value is that your processes with these integrations are more streamlined, with reduced costs and improved efficiencies. Secondly, we'll note that some of the data exchanges are impacted by regulations that mandate the usage of certain data exchange formats. So here we're less driven by value and more by regulation. So HIPAA, for example, mandates usage of X12 standards for electronic transactions. And thirdly, let's consider the promise of blockchain or distributed ledgers and what they mean for integrations between systems and organizations. So briefly, if you consider that we've moved from a centralized model where all the data and function was on the mainframe to a decentralized model where data and function exists in decentralized systems, and now we're looking to move on to distributed ledgers where everyone has the same data and function, and the data is always 100% up to date in all locations and to all parties. So that can have some profound impacts. Firstly, it means you have insight or instant access to data at the same point as everybody else in the blockchain. Once data is in the blockchain, all participants have access with security permissions. So this means the data we have is better quality, it's more available without delays. And if you think about what that means to things like cost transparency. Secondly, it means that there's no need to reconcile different versions of the same data. And that can dramatically simplify your systems and your value chain. So areas such as claims processing could benefit hugely from this sort of simplification. Once more, we'll ask the question, how can FHIR help with these examples? If we look to the right, again, the standard APIs that FHIR provides can help simplify things for us. So as with the data standard, FHIR APIs provide a common standard target to map your integrations to. So whether you're integrating with non-FHIR systems, having to support mandatory data exchange formats, or whether you're integrating with a blockchain, these APIs provide standard APIs to build those integrations against, which brings the benefits of interoperability. So integration points can be reused across multiple systems that have all been integrated to that common API standard. Again, what FHIR doesn't tell us how to do is connect those integrations, how to transform between formats, how to develop, test, deploy, and scale the integrations, all of which our solution addresses. So we've covered quite a bit so far. Let's pause for a moment and think about complexity, or its opposite, obviously, which is simplicity. So I think we all know that simple is better, and complexity brings a lot of headaches. So we strive for simplicity in our solution. It makes them easier to operate, to maintain, to extend, and ultimately they cost less. So the FHIR specification itself gives you a standard that helps to a degree with simplicity. But when you start addressing the 4 data concerns, so sharing data, managing data, data science, and data integration, all of this can bring along a lot of complexity even before you consider the 145 APIs, which themselves take quite a bit of time to understand. So if you take the approach that this is just software that you need to implement, you're going to end up with a lot more complexity. As you seek to address each of these concerns, you're going to end up with more stuff, more tools, more infrastructure, more technologies, more applications, more code, all of which is more stuff. And we all know that stuff costs more to buy, more to build, more to look after. And you'll see your people being kept busy, which means less time to do productive work, more time to just look after all this stuff. And often the final nail is when you start hitting constraints with your non-functional requirements. So how does this stuff scale? How usable is it all? How secure is it? What does all of this mean in terms of performance and the cost to maintain and support? So the Prolific solution to counteract all this complexity and cost and replace it with simplicity. And there are 3 ways it seeks to do this. So firstly, by providing a simple platform that means there's less stuff for you to worry about. less divergent technologies, more common platform, and I'll be coming back to this a little bit later. Secondly, we have to make sure that the solution allows you to leverage the cloud. So that lets you offload additional complexities around infrastructure. And lastly, if you think of simplicity as focusing on what you need and no more, then the obvious question when dealing with FHIR is, how do you do that when you've not done this before? And that's why we've made sure we have, so that you can benefit. Simplification takes effort, and we've made sure we've rolled up our sleeves and put in that effort. So our solution goes under the name of Prolific's QuickFHIR. It is an integration and data solution for onboarding existing healthcare IT systems and data sources directly into the FHIR ecosystem. It helps deliver the perfect healthcare system of tomorrow by addressing each of the 4 data concerns we've spoken about. So very briefly, to achieve data sharing, it provides an API gateway with secured endpoints, with a developer portal and sandboxes to socialize the APIs and let developers code and test against them. It also adds a microservice for managing patients' consent, as well as a FHIR transaction audit store. To achieve data integration, it provides a data integration and HIPAA compliance engine, so you can integrate in your existing healthcare systems of record easily without a lot of additional code to look after. For your data scientists, it provides an AI machine learning module, which is one that allows your data scientists to focus on their data science by providing significant amounts of automation to help out. And to manage the data, to ensure your data scientists are getting good data at volume, it provides a data ops module for setting up data pipelines along with data governance. Again, without a lot more complex code that needs to be looked after. Also made sure that QuickFHIR is a componentized solution, so it can coexist with existing solutions you may already have in place, adding an incremental value in the areas where you don't already have suitable capability today. In short, QuickFHIR will reduce your implementation time and also reduce the complexity your teams will end up having to look after. Just a brief word on the Innovation Center. QuickFHIR is a product of the Prolific's Innovation Center. And although we've always considered ourselves to be an innovative company, in January of last year, we took things to the next level by rebooting our entire business model to put innovation at the leading edge of how we deliver value to our customers. The Innovation Center is where we invest in technical and thought leadership for our customers, and it's where we create solutions that solve your problems by investing in how best to solve those problems using the best technologies available. So you can see on this slide that FHIR and our QuickFHIR solution plays a big role in our plans for spring 2020. And our key themes for this quarter are AI machine learning infusion and hyper-automation, destination cloud, so cloud being where businesses are looking to make the most radical investments in their capabilities, and lastly, DevOps, DataOps, and MLOps. You can see that our QuickFHIR solution delivers a spread of value across all those themes. So the AI machine learning component being delivered by AI ML for healthcare, our API and integration components being delivered by OpenAPI's FHIR and healthcare blockchain, and our data pipeline component being delivered by DataOps for healthcare. Again, the Innovation Center is where we roll up our sleeves and we do more than just talking about and designing these solutions. This is where we make it real and we actually build out these solutions. All right, let me tie a lot of this back to what I was saying about simplicity. So at the top of the slide, I have an overall implementation blueprint that I put together to aid in communicating how the various components you would implement in QuickFHIR fit together. So on the left, it shows the components that are useful to an organization that needs to use FHIR data. On the right, it shows the same for any organization that is providing FHIR data. And obviously, many organizations will need to do both of those things. In the middle, we have a blockchain consortium that uses a healthcare blockchain that both exposes data using the FHIR APIs as well as consuming data using FHIR APIs. So I'll briefly pause to mention that in the Innovation Center, we've also built out a blockchain implementation that we won't be covering today for lack of time, but please do get in touch if you'd like to hear more. Significantly, the QuickFHIR solution, going down on the slide, is built on top of just 2 cloud packs from IBM. Cloud Pack for data and Cloud Pack for integration. And this brings a significant amount of simplicity in operation for the overall platform. The IBM Cloud Packs are enterprise-grade software packs that use the open Kubernetes operational model to simplify both the deployment and operation of your software solutions. And all of that's delivered on Red Hat OpenShift to ensure it can run on-premise or on the cloud of your choice. And all this gives you the best of combination of flexibility and simplicity. So all of that helps make sure your people are able to focus their time on the things that bring value to you and not all the other things that are just a distraction. So this slide lists out some of the use cases that we've been investigating as part of our work on FHIR in the Innovation Center. But I'm not going to attempt to go through them because there are just so many. Any attempts to come up with a representative set will probably fall short because the scale of the transformational impact that we think FHIR can make is so great and so broad. So what that means is there's really an endless set of potential use cases for QuickFHIR in building the healthcare system of tomorrow. There are just so many ways that data can better serve patients and their needs. Obviously, depending on where your organization delivers value in the ecosystem, you will care more about some use cases than others. But whether you're healthcare providers, healthcare payers, whether you're in life sciences or biotech, whether you're responsible for regulation, we believe each can benefit from the real-time data exchange that's made possible using FHIR. Furthermore, as you've seen today, how this enables hyper-automation in your business using AI machine learning to automate the things that have not previously been possible to automate. So recognizing that the discussion starts with your use cases, and in order to understand how you can dramatically reduce the time to value for your FHIR implementation, what we've done is we've structured a customer journey for you with a simple journey with 4 stops. So the first stop is a half-day to full-day FHIR readiness workshop that we offer at no cost, where our consultants will meet up with you to understand where you're at currently on your FHIR implementation journey. The second stop would be a 1-week exercise where we jointly identify a set of use cases to implement, and that'll provide you with the most value, working out whether they should be around data sharing or data management or integration or AI machine learning or even some sort of combination. And then we scope out the MVP that will deliver the most value for a first release cycle. The third stop is where our engineers implement the QuickFHIR solution along with a set of MVP use cases, partnered with the Innovation Center to accelerate the solution implementation. And finally, the fourth stop will take what's been produced, operationalize the solution, and then set you up to launch further release cycles to continue delivering value. So you can get started immediately on this journey. All you need to do is reach out to your Prolifics rep or email us at solutions@prolifics.com. We'd love to set up a personalized FHIR readiness assessment that'll get you started. Whether you're looking to secure the data you share using FHIR, whether you're looking to set up the pipelines that allow you to share your existing data using FHIR, or whether you're excited about the opportunities opened up by our machine learning, we think Prolifics can help you get from vision to value much faster. So now that we've completed today's introduction to what we've been doing around FHIR, and I've shared the journey we'd like to take you on, that brings us to the end of today's webinar. I'd like to close out by thanking each and every one of you that joined us today. My aim was to share the thinking and building we've done around FHIR to get a dialogue started. So this is really the beginning of that dialogue. We'd love to hear from you, how your implementation journeys are going. Our mission is simple. We want to help you get from vision to value faster. So I'll finish off by saying we didn't start the FHIR, but we're really excited about using it to accelerate the vision I started us off with today. So that vision of the perfect healthcare system of the future, one that gives us all healthier and happier lives. Thank you all for joining and very much enjoy the rest of your day.